Welcome to VCs Off the Record. This is Real Talk with Real Investors. Your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, CEO of Wocstar Capital and co-founder of the Wocstar Fund, has spent 30 years in finance. And I'm here too. I'm Victoria Bert. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar Media. And I've spent 30 years in media. We champion female entrepreneurs. We champion diverse teams, and we're both passionate about stories that change old narratives. We're looking to inform you, inspire you, and help you get your bag and your dreams.
Now, this is our first episode in our third season. That's right, season 3. And when our team started talking about what we wanted to do with this season, we thought about what to focus on. And it really came back to how much the podcast has changed, it's grown. Today, we're going to delve into origin stories. We're going to turn the tables and talk a little bit about my origin story. And then later in the show, we're going to talk one-on-one with another venture capitalist, Erica Duignan Minnihan with Rain Ventures. Now, normally I'm the one asking the questions, but today we're going to flip the script, and I've asked Victoria Bert, who heads up Wocstar Media. That's right, she's come on full time to lead Wocstar Media. And she's going to turn the tables on me and ask me the questions.
Gayle, thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking me to join Wocstar Media and to join you on this mission, which very much aligns with my mission to help women grow, help people grow and see their dreams. But I want to talk about, first of all, I love a good podcast, so let's do this. I want to delve into your story because I've heard it over the years, and I'm always seeing people ask you about how you started Wocstar. But before that, what was I know the answer partially, but what was your inspiration for the career you chose, and tell the people about how you started in finance?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, my mother was a big inspiration. She's like those women that you would have seen in the movie Hidden Figure that were working on the space shuttle. She was doing similar work on the F-15 fighter plane and the DC-10, kind of the grandmother of the planes that we're all flying today. And so I saw women in technology. I saw them in science, right? She was using the IBM mainframe and that same COBOL and Fortran software. And so to me, the idea of women in tech and in business wasn't foreign to me. It's what I woke up with and saw at the breakfast table and the dinner table. And then the other part of the inspiration was the movie Wall Street. Michael Douglas playing Gordon Gekko. And I just was like, I want that life.
So it was about making the deals and making the decisions and being sort of like a mover and a shaker and a changer?
Yeah, it was being a deal maker. It was that hustle. It was that confidence. It was that people like looking for you for your opinion and it being respected, and doing it in this like high pressure, high tense place of Wall Street and finance, and like seeing millions and billions moving.
And how long did you do that before you came to this place in your life where you started thinking about Wocstar?
So I was a mergers and acquisitions banker, so investment banker that bought and sold companies on behalf of clients. And I did that for, a number of years. In total, I was at JP Morgan 20 years, but I did that for a number of years. But I also had a couple other crazy kooky roles while I was there. I was an international lobbyist during the Bush administration for JP Morgan. And then I was a philanthropist. And so I worked in JP Morgan's Global Foundation. And the thing was, in all of these, I was seeing the movement of capital. So I saw it when I worked in technology in Silicon Valley right out of college. I saw it as the movement of capital with big companies and corporations right on Wall Street. And then I saw it from the policy side, as an international lobbyist. And then I saw it as a philanthropist, right? Sort of the social impact movement of capital. But in all of that, what I didn't see were people that looked like me, right? All of this money being allocated and flowing around the globe, and yet we weren't the decision makers, we weren't the beneficiaries of it. And so when I got cancer, I made a little pact with God and said, if I get off this operating table, I want to join the front lines of my sisters who are building companies. I was doing little things like writing little checks here and there to, support a friend or buying, some item that she was selling. I wouldn't really call myself an angel investor at that point. I was just, writing the odd check. I don't even think there was any paperwork behind it, right? I just wanted to be helpful. But yeah, it was that moment of thinking I was going to die that I had to really think about what my purpose on life was. And I haven't looked back since then.
So you make it through. You decide, I'm going to start this company. How did you come to the name?
So I didn't decide I was going to start this company. I just knew I wanted to help women entrepreneurs. And I started out with a partner, and we tried something, it didn't work. And so I had to go back to the planning board, blank slate. And I just started talking to entrepreneurs, to women and startups, to really find out what their pain point was. And no surprise, it was just the capital. Like they just needed the capital and for us to get out of their way so they could build something really good. And so in that sort of listening tour that I was taking, my current partner said, "Hey, like, are we going to be investing in moonshots, like some crazy thing that could just go to the moon?" And I said, there might be some of that in there, but there's also just some, real solid business models, businesses being built. So it could be a little bit of that. I said, but in all of that, these women are superstars, they're rock stars. Yeah, they're going to go to the moon, and we're going to go with them. And then that just kind of kept repeating itself in my head. And so it was like, yeah, they're rock stars, they're badass. And as I kept meeting more of them, I'm like, she's a rock star, she's a rock star. And then it was like, all right, how can we use that? And so we say rock star every day. We just spell it WOC instead of ROCK.
Right. Now, it's been several years. What kind of changes have you seen in doing this work day to day in the last several years?
Yeah, the two big changes I've seen is there's more of us, people of color, underrepresented, LGBTQ members are now part of the venture capital world in a bigger way in terms of having decision making roles, check writing roles. So I love that. And then the other change I've seen is the types of companies that we're building. Women, people of color, underrepresented people, immigrants, we've been historically entrepreneurial, right? Like we had to create jobs when there were no jobs, right? So entrepreneurism isn't new to us, but the change I've seen is that I see more venture backable companies, and that's really amazing to see because that's when we start to create generational wealth.
So you saw this void in this world, and you were able to fill it, and now you're seeing more people step into that world. What has been the biggest struggle?
We're stepping in, but unfortunately, the markets and the mainstream investors aren't stepping in with us. And so that challenge still exists. And we have now, I read a report the other day, in terms of investment in Black founders and funds, we are back to 2016 levels.
So we had a surge.
We had a George
We
Floyd
had a George
moment.
Floyd, and it went up, but now it's gone back down.
It's gone back down
to the status.
Yeah,
quo.
I mean, it has fallen like 70-some% off the cliff.
How do we change that? How does that change? Do we just keep, our vice president the other day said we got to kick the door down.
Yes, she did.
She used the fancier word
Yes,
in there.
she did. She used some
I was
colorful
so-
language.
Yeah, I was so inspired by that because when you can see the vice president of the United States acknowledging that the door needs to be kicked in, right? And I guess in a way
That's some real talk.
That's real talk.
That's real talk.
That's real talk.
That's real talk.
You know?
Listen, we can go and tell people what they need to do, and we can plead and beg and do all that. I'm not about that. Our community, the Wocstar community, we are about success. And when we win, people will come. The world loves winners. So you know what? That's what we get up and do every day. We win. We succeed.
So if there are 3 words that you want Wocstar to be synonymous with, would it be 1, be winners? What are there 2 others?
Smart investors and collaborators.
I like that. Now, you really help people fulfill their dreams, right? That is at the core of what we do, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah.
I'm a dreamer, right?
Yeah.
I'm imagining.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what money brings.
I receive that.
That's what money brings. Money brings access to dreams, right? And even if the dream is to get the money, success, right? So what do you see as Wocstar's success in 10 years? Pick a date.
Our success will be when people invest in our sisterhood because of what you just said. They want to make money.
Right. And the correlation is when we invest in these businesses, we make money. And the facts are already there, right? You tell me that all the time.
Listen, the research has been done. The data exists. 30% greater returns when you invest in diverse founders and diverse teams. Yet for whatever reason, the money still is going this way and not that way.
Well, if we're real talk, it's pretty easy to now look at me, I can't even say it. I can't even say it. You know, it seems very clear that there are choices being made that benefit different demographics than the ones we serve.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of isms out there, right? There's a lot to unpack in unconscious bias and, you know, where your circles of knowledge and networks are. But at the end of the day, I believe it's trust.
Mm-hmm.
Do people trust my community to win, to build great companies, to create jobs, to successfully manage money and be profitable?
Yeah.
And so that's why we focus on the winning and the success.
And I think also why we also incorporate the concept of storytelling into it, because as we tell the stories of the success, as we allow people to tell their stories and show people in different lights, we see more diverse Gordon Geckos, right? More people will have that belief system built in. All right, I'm going to go into a quick lightning round of questions because I think I want to know some things that I think other people might find interesting. Okay, so what do you do to keep your mind clear? Because you work a lot. I mean, you send me messages and I'm like, does she sleep? Is she sleeping?
She might have slept for a few minutes before she sent the message. So 3 things I try to do as often as I can. Bike, cook, and watch reality TV. It's my brain candy.
Right. I'm very much right now into the Vanderpump Rules of it all.
We'll talk.
Okay, we'll talk. So, okay, how do you keep the work-life balance? Do you keep it?
I practice it. I'm practicing. But you know what? It really helps, in all seriousness, is how you start the day really dictates how the day will go. And so for me, I start with meditation, I start with prayer, I start with the scripture, and then I start by journaling. And when I do that, I find I'm more grounded and I'm calm. And the days where I miss it, the energy, the vibe is already at like at 200, 300,000 decibels.
So I'm going to end with this question because this is actually going to be an episode that we're going to have later on where we're talking about like rejection and no's. A lot of no's when people, asking for money, when they ask you for money, a lot of no's involved. How do you process that?
Well, I always go back to something my mother would say to me when I was a kid, which was, no one's ever died from the word no. And she actually used to make me go and get the obituary and see if I could find where someone died of the word no. And that's actually kind of how I started to read. I would read the obituaries. I would stock the stock pages. I don't even know. Do they have stock pages anymore? I don't even know.
But first of all, just that tells me so much about you. That's how you started reading, with the obits and the stocks.
There you go.
There we go.
And what are the things I love now? Finance and the memoriam at the Oscars.
Right.
And honestly, that's why I watch the Oscars, for the memoriam.
Oh dear.
I know, it's fabulous. I love it.
All right, I'm going to stop you there because I know you have another guest coming in, and we're going to take a short break.
Thank you for this.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
We're thrilled to have Erica Duignan Minnihan joining us today on VCs Off the Record. Hey, Erica. So let's go off the record.
It is always wonderful to spend time with you and just, to chat with a really good friend who's also made a huge impact in the venture world. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think a lot of people think about the collaboration that takes place in venture capital. I think they probably see a lot of the the competitiveness of it. But I have to commend you, like, when I stepped into this, you really embraced me and were just welcoming, and so, I don't think I've ever said that, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
But I want people to know more about you, like, what's your origin story? How did this come to be? There's so many things you're brilliant at, but, like, you have been selfless in putting it all out there for entrepreneurs and companies. Where did that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always say my villain origin story started as a fifth grade president of the Young Entrepreneurs Club, where I handmade and sold friendship bracelets for $1 each. And, as a fifth grader in, I guess it was the 80s, that was actually some pretty good coin. So, you know,
Yeah. I
got
mean, you had
really.
hustle in 5th grade, I love it.
Yes, absolutely, and, learned how to spell the word entrepreneur early, which I have to usually write on a daily basis, so it's nice that that's a little bit secondhand. But, I think even though my parents are not entrepreneurs, my mom's a physician, my father, at the time was a professional chef, I always just had a real interest in business and in the idea of entrepreneurship and, people starting companies. I would say that that definitely carried over through my time at university.
Mm.
And even though I started off pre med thinking I might follow in my mother's footsteps, I eventually ended up sort of switching over to studying business economics with a minor in accounting and pursuing, my passion of going into the world of finance. I graduated UCLA in 1998, came to New York to work on Wall Street, spent about the first 8 years of my career doing investment banking, working in many different areas of public markets. Started off doing sort of traditional corporate finance, so M&A, IPOs, debt transactions. Spent a couple of years working on sort of an asset management initiative that happened during the original dot-com boom, which was pretty
Ah.
interesting over at Credit Suisse. Did my MBA at Columbia Business School. Go Columbia, amazing school for those considering it.
We'll
Uh,
let that
yeah.
slide.
Studying finance and then, back onto Wall Street as a fixed income trader, trading a lot of the really complicated mortgage-backed securities product in sort of the mid 2000s, right before.
Before the crash, right?
Right before the big crash. So, as a sort of mortgage-backed security trader from 2004 to 2006, I really began to see, a lot of the uh, sort of manipulations of the market that were happening in some of the public markets, right? Whether, when I was on the equity side, sort of now being more uh, in a mortgage-backed asset class. Every time I kind of got involved with a different area of the public markets, I would find that what I was specifically doing, maybe wasn't doing anything wrong, but when I kind of zoomed out and
Mm.
looked at the big picture, I would start to feel a little bit uncomfortable with the way money was moving in the market and my specific role in maybe creating, wealth transfer from what I would describe as more, the everyday people to a, very small hierarchy of folks. So, I was really felt faced with a little bit of a moral dilemma, which I think was exacerbated by the fact that by the time I was 2 years out of business school, I had just given birth to my youngest child. I'm a mom of three as well. And, when faced with returning from maternity leave, to go back to a, 70-hour a week job where, I was really not going to be able to spend as much time as I'd
Yeah.
like with my kids, I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that I really felt was contributing positively to society. So, loved finance in theory, have always kind of been, what we call a quant jock, but was really
Yes.
trying to find my place within a sector where I could feel like I was using my skills for good and not sort of accidentally for evil. And around that time, I saw an opportunity at at a brand new firm here in New York that was looking at creating basically an investor network, an investment platform that would invest only in female-founded businesses. Now, at the time, and I would say in 2006, this is like right around when, first round capital was just being started. Union Square Ventures, I think, was like barely a couple of
Yeah,
years old. So we didn't really have a robust venture ecosystem in New York.
that's right.
Uh,
And you definitely didn't have women like yourself in it. I
oh
mean,
yeah, absolutely.
it was a boys' network.
Yeah, it was very much a
Yeah,
boys'
for sure.
network. But, the first thing people said to me was, well, you can't do venture capital in New York. And I was like, well, I'm going to give it a shot. And then the second thing they said to me is that, well, you can't invest in female founded businesses because there are none. And I said, well, you may be right, but I'm sure if somebody was there to invest in female founded businesses, we might actually see some female founders. So, was really excited to get into a brand new space, immediately fell in love with the asset class, the organization where I started and, became executive director, ended up being Golden Seeds, which has been now one of, the largest
Yeah,
and most successful
absolutely.
gender lens investment platforms in the
I love it.
country.
I love it. So let me stop you there for a minute because now you've seen the investing from '06 to now. Have the things that you look for in companies changed? Maybe I should say, what are the things you look for, and has it changed in this, you know, period of time from '06 to now?
Yeah, I think things are always changing. And that's one of the wonderful things about, having a job in the capital markets is that it's always so completely dynamic. I think when I first started off, there was more of a focus on revenue, on earnings, on, efficient usage of cash flow, capital efficiency, really. And we saw, over the years maybe from 2006 to 2016, things really swing in a violently opposite direction, right? Where, earnings didn't really matter. It was all about growth. It was sort of all about, what I kind of call, this almost like Ponzi scheme of, the next sort of investor to hand your shares off to. So, it was very interesting to be in the market during a time where fundamental investment analysis just changed so dramatically. Um, I remember a few years ago, all of a sudden, looking at my husband and saying, oh my gosh, like, do you remember DCF analysis? And we both just like burst into tears laughing because, people, something that was like such a fundamental,
I was just teaching it the other
right.
day.
Something that was such a cornerstone of investment valuation, by sort of 2020 had been completely thrown out the window,
Now, listen, I teach a class, the Wocstar Academy, and I was teaching our students about DCF, discounted cash flow
Yeah.
valuation, the other day.
And just like, bell bottoms from the 70s, it's back now, right? People are actually looking like interest rates are non-zero. People actually care about these things. So it's, over the 18 years that I've been, in venture, it's been so interesting to see things, the pendulum really swing
Yeah.
one way very hard and then now quite back to, sort
I
of a
love it.
more old school perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have a lot of listeners that are raising capital, and we'll probably love to talk to you. So I want to do a little bit of a speed round so they have a real sense of what you look for, what Rain is interested in. Tell me 2 or 3 things that you guys invest in. Is there sectors? Is there types of technology? Is there geographies?
Yeah, so we are seed stage investors. So the most important thing is that the company needs to be seed stage, right? And then the second most important thing is that they need to have a very capital efficient business model. And for us, that means that there's a clear path to getting to 50 million or more in revenue on, less than $50 million in total capital raised. And I would say, in this particular market, we'd probably love to see the company do it on, even less than $50 million.
Yeah.
But within that, we're sector agnostic. But I would say that in order to kind of fit the model of capital efficiency that we're looking for, 99 times out of 100, the company is going to need to be a technology company or technology enabled in some way. So our portfolio is split between about 50% consumer tech and 50% B2B enterprise software. We don't like to state too much around, what we're looking for specifically because we're not thesis-driven investors. In
Gotcha.
fact, I always say, if I've heard of what you're doing already, I probably don't want to invest in it, right? So it's very hard for me to say I want to invest in X because I actually want to be
I
surprised.
love that, actually. I love
right?
that. Yeah, I love that.
Like I want to invest in something I've never thought about or heard about where you have brought a really unique idea and perspective to the market to fill, a white space that is maybe not prevalently recognized.
I love that. All right, one word. What's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to founders?
Probably arrogance.
Okay, I'll take it. So let me ask you another question that we get a lot from the founders, and I think you could help answer. What's the biggest mistake founders make when pitching that they should try to avoid?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest mistake a founder can make is going into a pitch meeting not realizing that there's more value that can be extracted from the meeting than just getting a yes or no on an investment, right? It's an opportunity to build a relationship. It's an opportunity to get very valuable feedback. And even if, that specific pitch or investment opportunity isn't right for the investor that you're talking to, if you have a really good interaction and bring, good energy to the meeting, it's very likely that if you follow up with an ask for introductions to other people that might be interested in investing or can help you, that it'll be offered to you and can help you sort of continue to get closer to your goal. So I wouldn't think about it as, can this person write a check, yes or no? If no, that's sort of the end of the road as far as my ability to get help or extract value from the interaction.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm glad you shared that. The one I would add that I see often is that they don't really check in on the investor to find out like what they invest in or what they're interested in, right? They kind of just jump in like, here's my pitch, da 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 da. I always try to start with like getting them to talk a little bit, find out, what they're interested in, what they invested in most recently, because it sort of helps you figure out how to maybe pivot your conversation a little bit.
Yeah. And, I certainly have absolutely seen founders who do that. Me personally, I always feel like we only have 30 minutes and like,
You're
I don't
poker
want to
facing
be,
'em.
I don't
That's
want to
what's
be
happening there.
interrogated at the beginning, right? Like, let me first find out what you're doing,
You
so that
are
we can
holding
move
your
forward.
cards close to the chest. Like, hey, I see you. I see you.
But yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. Every VC is different in terms of, and I think a good idea is to even start off the conversation asking, hey, would you like me to start with my presentation, or do you want to start by telling me a little bit about what your fund is interested in? And that way, the format will flow in a way that is probably most comfortable for the person you're pitching.
That's right. Now, do you guys see why I have Erica on here? I mean, she's just brilliant. That was brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And then, are you a texter or an emailer? What's the best way for people to find you? Text,
Definitely
email, LinkedIn.
Prefer email.
Email. All righty. Erica, thank you for coming in. And thank you for, I've known you and loved you for years, but I learned so much about you today in a different way. This has been really beautiful.
Yeah.
And very informative, which I love because our listeners are wanting real talk from real investors, and you are the real deal. So thank you.
Well, right back at you. And, thank you so much. And if anyone is interested in emailing me, it's erica@rainvc.com. Would love to hear your pitches.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for hanging with us. This podcast was produced by Wocstar Media in New York City at the Podstream Studios. Be sure to follow VCs Off the Record on Apple and Spotify. We're also on Sheconomy, the State of Women podcast platform. Please consider giving us a good review or share it with someone. Let us know what you want us to talk about on our socials and our YouTube channel. You can find us at wocstar.com for all the information.